By 2013, you'd think a 71-year-old Paul McCartney would have nothing left to prove. Here is a man who could have retired when he was 30, and yet he kept going and going and going, creating more and more music. And yet in 2013, he would release an album that sounded fresh, that sounded new. He was trying to be contemporary, but in the best possible way. So fittingly, he would call that album New. It's that one there. So it was in the period between Memory Almost Full coming out in 2007 and this album coming out in 2013 when I started to get into the solo Beatles, and I quickly realised that Paul's solo stuff, to me at least, is better than the other three. He was the one that I was going to roll with. He was going to be my Beatle in terms of the solo stuff. So in that period, the first album that he released where I was properly paying attention by that point was Kisses on the Bottom. But that's not, I know it is officially an album, but it's an album of standards, it's a covers album, so it wasn't really a proper one. This was his first album of new stuff that he put out when I was paying attention. So this was the first one I bought the day it came out, where I was like, oh, a new Paul McCartney album, wee! Bear in mind, 2013, how old would I have been? I'd have been, I must have been about 15, I think. So, you know, most 15-year-olds were not listening to Paul McCartney albums at that point, so, you know, I was kind of like the edgy kid at school. I was in my own head listening to McCartney albums. And as luck would have it, this was a very good album to start with because, spoiler alert, this is, in my opinion, one of Paul McCartney's best albums. So let's dive into the album background here because this is an album that means a lot to me. It was the album where, when he was touring to support this album, it was the first time I ever seen Paul McCartney live. So yeah, this period of Paul means a lot to me. So let's dive into the background here. So on the subject of the period from Memory Almost Full until this album coming out, a lot happened in Paul's personal life. The big thing was he got divorced from Wonky Leg. She tried to take him for half of everything he had, but she didn't get away with that. The court sided with Paul in the end. Then Paul found new love in the form of Nancy Chevelle, who he married in 2011, I think it was. So he was a newly married man by the time this came out, and he had a fresh perspective, a fresh love in his life, and that transcribed onto this album. With him feeling fresh and rejuvenated, that's the word I want. So naturally, Paul was now feeling very happy in his life, and you can tell because this is a very happy album compared to an album like Chaos and Bits of Memory Almost Full, where Paul is obviously not in the best mindset at that point in his life. Now at this point, Paul had 4 producers that he really liked. 2 producers who were sons of very famous producers, and the other 2 being the in-producers of the time. So these producers were Giles Martin, obviously you'll all know who he is the son of George Martin. The other one, Ethan Johns, he's the son of Glyn Johns, who was this is still not clear to this day. Was he the producer of the Get Back sessions? Was he the engineer? It's still not clear what George Martin was. Well, George Martin was definitely producer, but was Glyn Johns the co-producer, whatnot? We don't know. Glyn Johns also produced the early stages of Red Rose Speedway before walking out on the sessions. Ethan Johns did not walk out on these sessions. He produces 2 songs on here. And then the 2 in producers of this point, Mark Ronson, and the other one is Paul Epworth. So Paul liked these 4 producers and he thought, I will trial all 4 of them and whichever one is best will be the one who gets to produce this album. Paul was obviously feeling a bit indecisive at this period though, because he would decide to stuff that idea and bring all 4 on board, with Giles Martin serving as the executive producer. And having 4 producers on this album is kind of the only downfall I feel this album has, because it's very similar in a sense to Flowers in the Dirt and the problem I have with that album, because that album had too many cooks in the kitchen. There was 9 producers on that album, which was ludicrous. There's not as many on here, obviously, but there is still a feeling of being too many cooks in the kitchen, which kind of makes it a little bit, not directionless, but it kind of does stop it from flowing seamlessly because the styles of production are different for the whole album. It's not as bad on this album as it is on Flowers, but it is an issue that I find with this album personally. Anyway, the sessions for New would take place between January 2012 and March 2013 and would take place in London, the studios being Abbey Road and Air Studios. There's another one in London, I can't remember what it is. He also sessions took place at his studio in Sussex, Hog Hill Mill. There were sessions at New York and LA as well, but I couldn't tell you what the studios were. I think it was Henson Sound, was it, in LA? Don't quote me on that. I really should have checked that. So yeah, it was a wide, eclectic amount of studios that he used for this album. But yeah, that's kind of all there is to say on the background, really. There's not too much really here compared to some of his earlier albums. New was released on October 11th, 2013, and with the critics it was pretty well received, and with us fans as well. A lot of fans will say this is one of Paul's best albums. In terms of the charts, it reached number 3 here in the UK and also over in the States. To promote the album as well, Paul would do a number of surprise gigs. I can remember he did one at Covent Garden. He also did one in Times Square. He likes to do these when new albums come out, so hopefully with Boys of Dungeon Lane coming up, we'll get some more surprise gigs soon. I imagine he will do something in Liverpool, given the name of the album, but we will see. Anyway, I shall quickly show you this copy of the album that I own. To start with, this artwork. Don't like it. It's very boring. It's not. He's done worse than this. The Point of Dungeon Lane is worse than this. But it just feels unimaginative. It feels a bit uninspired. It feels. I mean, it's not bad. The lighting works quite cool on it, but you know, and you see like sometimes on like manhole covers on drains, you see this sort of print on it, which I think that's maybe where Paul has got the inspiration from. But anyway. There you go, hang on, that is the front cover, back cover there, and then it opens up to this gatefold, which is all the lyrics, which are annoying to read like that, but there you go, that tends to be the way things go these days. They like to make lyrics annoying. We have this booklet as well, which is very high quality. It's just, yeah, it's got quotes from the band and everything, I think. Yeah, it is literally just quotes from that. I haven't read this for a long time. Quotes from Paul's touring band, plus pictures from the sessions. Yeah, that's literally it. There's some cool stuff in here, I suppose. Yeah, most of these, I think all these pictures are from Abbey Road, actually. Yeah, they are. So there you go. There's the booklet and the actual record sleeve itself. Just is a load of different things that say new. It is quite a cool name for the album, New. It is a very new, fresh sounding album. There you go, the record there. It's just a black one on a white label. Anyway, there is your album background, just briefly. So we shall now dive into a track-by-track review of the album. Opening track Save Us sets the tone of the album perfectly. It's an upbeat rocker that is produced and co-written with Paul Epworth. What happened with the Paul Epworth songs on here? Him and Paul were in the studio, they were just jamming and they improvised all these songs. So I don't know exactly how it happened, but basically one of them was playing, I think one of them was on guitar and the other one was on piano. I think it was maybe Paul on piano and Paul Epworth on the guitar, and they just improvised this song and it came out of that, and Paul came up with the lyrics and stuff. So McCartney came up with the lyrics, I should say, since they're both called Paul, just tried to confuse him. Anyway, like I say, it's a really upbeat rocker, this, and the opening line, I can try to give you everything you ever wanted, you're not hard to please, and the only thing I'm asking in return for is something you can give with ease. This is me reading into things too much, being one of those idiots with, you know, tinfoil hats and stuff. I always kind of interpret this line as being a message from Paul to us fans. He can try to give us everything we've ever wanted because we're not hard to please, you know, basically all this music that he gives us, and the only thing he's asking in return is something that we can give him with ease, which is our love for his music and our money as well, but obviously the main thing being our love for his music, because why would he want all our money? Anyway, that's me reading into it too much, because it's obviously just a love song and it's just supposed to be, I imagine, aimed at Nancy, that line, but there we go. What else have I got written down here? Paul did this song live for a while. I can remember when I seen him live the first time. Pretty sure this was a set. I'm sure he started the gig with 8 days a week, and then this was the second song he did, and it works really well live. It's dropped from the set now, but it was a good live little rocker, this song. It sets the album up perfectly. It's a brilliant opening track. I really like Save Us. It's a great song. Now the tone of the album completely changes with the next track, entitled Alligator, which is the first of the Mark Ronson produced songs on here. Mark Ronson is probably the most famous producer of all of them on this album. He was definitely at this point in his life the most in-demand producer in the world, I would say. Anyway, this song, it's a bit more on the experimental side. It's kind of all over the place. Some of it's a bit of a rocker. Some of it's this sort of spaced out, psychedelic kind of sounding thing. Some brilliant lyrics on here. My favourite line on the entire album is on here, which is everybody else is busy doing better than me. I think that's a great line. I love the part of the song as well where Paul sings the "Could you be that person for me?" that bit. It sounds like he's playing the mellotron that's used on the intro, Strawberry Fields. It probably is that one. I imagine this song was done at Hog Hill Mill, where Paul has got that actual mellotron that was used. So it sounds very much like that he's playing on here, and it sounds great. It really does sound good. What else have I got written down here in my notes? Great chorus as well, very catchy. It's McCartney at his best on this chorus, which is that line that I said I really liked. Everybody else is busy doing better than me. Yeah, it's just a great little tune, this one. It's experimental, and it proves that even at this stage in his life, Paul still wanted to try and push boundaries and be experimental. So, yeah, great catchy song. Mark Ronson is doing a fantastic job on the production of this song as well. On My Way to Work is the title of the next track, and this one is much more traditional McCartney. It's the first track on the album produced by Giles Martin. I believe this song is about Paul's pre-Beatles life, when he had a proper job. He did have a proper job at one point. Not that what he does is not a proper job making music, but he did have a normal job like we would all have. And as part of that job, he used to get the bus. Now, this song, in some ways, I don't know if Paul has ever confirmed this, but it feels somewhat like a bit of a sequel to A Day in the Life. Paul's part of that song, you know, the line, found my way upstairs and had a smoke, somebody spoke and I went into a dream on the bus. Well, on this song, Paul is upstairs on a green bus. I think it's a green bus. And he's collecting cigarette packets that have been left behind. So it kind of feels a bit like the sequel to that. Like he's coming in after his young self, picking up all these fag packets that young Paul has left behind. Again, that's me reading into it too much, but I do think that is probably intentional from Paul. Anyway, what have I got written down here in my notes? It's a nice build to it, this song. It starts off just Paul on an acoustic guitar, then the bass comes in, then drums and hand claps come in, and there's some nice harmonies, and then eventually electric guitars come in and it becomes this full-blown production. Yeah, good. I like this one. I like the line as well. It's just got a silly line about she came from Chichester to study history. I mean, how many songs mention Chichester? Not that many. Yeah, anyway, great track, this one. Paul sings it pretty well too. I haven't really spoken about Paul's vocals much on this album because they're fine. Yeah, he doesn't sound like he did when he was 20 or even 45, but he still sounds perfectly fine on this album. Now, on the subject of Paul's pre-fame days, we come to a track called Queenie Eye, which was inspired by a game that Paul used to play in the street with other kids in Liverpool when he was a kid. Basically, what happened, you would chuck a ball about and you would say, Queenie Eye, who's got the ball? I haven't got it isn't in my pocket. And he made that into this song, and it's a bloomin' good song. It's probably the most famous song on the album, largely because this one, I'm pretty sure this one he's still doing live to this day. I'm sure every time I've seen him, he's done this one. And rightfully so, because it is a brilliant song, this one. It was the second single released from the album. It's the second track on the album produced by Paul Epworth, which means it was also born out of an improvised jam, sort of made up on the spot. And bloody hell, it's a good one for that because... yeah, Paul Epworth does a great job producing this one. And like I say, it was the second single. It probably should have been the lead single, in my opinion, because it's a very catchy song. And had Paul released this when he'd been younger, I imagine this would have been a hit single. But because, you know, by this point he's 71, I can't imagine, you know, most people my age are not going to be buying singles from a 71-year-old. But if a young artist had put the song out, I think this would have been a big hit. Anyway, something I didn't realise until I was doing the research for this video, I never knew that Paul plays every instrument on this track except drums. I know, obviously, from the McCartney albums and stuff and Chaos and albums like that, he can play pretty much any instrument under the sun, but I didn't know he did it on this album, and here we go. And on this song of all things, I mean, it's brilliant what you can do here. There's a music video for this song as well, where Paul is in Abbey Road playing this song, and there's a load of famous people dancing about. I don't really care for the video, to be honest. I don't really care for music videos as it is, but that one I don't really care for either. What else have I got written down here? Just a fun song, this is. McCartney at his absolute best, making great pop music still to this day. It's an earworm and it makes you want to sing along. There's a reason he still does it live. It's very easy to sing along with this one, especially on the chorus. It's happy, and that's all it's about really, just a happy song. Why would you not want to have happy songs in your life? It's a great song, Queenie Eye, I really like it. So next on the album is a track entitled Early Days, and once again here we find Paul looking back at his pre-fame days. There's a pattern developing here, don't worry, it's the last time he does it on the album, this. It's the first track on the album produced by Ethan Johns, and it's quite a sparse production, this song. It's pretty much just Paul on an acoustic guitar for the most part. Paul's older, more frail voice is also on show on this song much more. It's kind of the first time he ever really did it, where he put his older voice properly on show. He didn't try and hide it beneath production and harmonies from his band and everything. He kind of is embracing it more on this song. Now, in my last video that I did before this, where it was about the newly announced album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane, I actually mentioned Early Days, and I said I didn't like the song. And I've since, whilst preparing for this video, been listening to this album a lot more, including Early Days, which is a song I hadn't listened to for years. And when I listened to it, I was like, oh, it's not as bad as I remember this. But the problem I have with it is buying into this thing of Paul rewriting history that he likes to do a lot these days. Particularly, there's one line on it. I can't remember exactly how the lyrics go, so I will tell you here. The line is, now everybody seems to have their own opinion of who did this and who did that. But as for me, I don't see how they can remember when they weren't where it was at. Now, he's got a bee in his bonnet about this because he likes to keep now going, well, how can anyone else know this? I was there, you weren't there, you can't know this. But often he's a walking contradiction because, all right, this isn't about his pre-Beatle days. We take a song like Let Him In. When that came out in 1976, Paul went around in interviews saying that he had written that song for Ringo. There is evidence of him saying that. These days, he goes around saying that he did not write it for Ringo. You should not believe everything you read on the internet. Well, we're not believing everything read on the internet, Paul. We can see physical evidence of you saying that, so there we go. You know. Anyway, I'm going down a tangent there, a bit of a rant. Anyway, I do appreciate that this song for a lot of people will be their favourite on the album. I just feel like there's just something about it that knocks me off. There's a video as well, which is quite a nice video. It's supposed to be him and John in their early days, but it's not the first time he's done a song like this. He did it on Flaming Pie as well, with the opening track on that called The Songs We Were Singing, and for me that is a far, far superior song to this one. So yeah, it's not a bad song though by any means this, it's just not one of my favourites that Paul has ever done. Sorry. Lead single and title track New comes along next, which is the second and final Mark Ronson produced song on the album. Now, I feel like since this album came out, I've gone off this song a bit. When it first came out, I loved this song so much, but now I can kind of take it or leave it. I'm a bit meh on it. I don't hate it by any means, I just don't care for it as much as I used to. A lot of people describe this song as sounding quite Beatley, which is probably the reason why Paul made it the lead single, because to be fair, it does sound quite Beatley, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'd prefer Paul to do a bit more experimental than playing it safe by trying to go for that Beatles sound. He executes it very well here. It is a good song, I will give him that. What have we got here? By this point in his life, as I say, Paul is a newly married man. He sounds very happy on this song. He is a happy man again. He's got Heather Mills out of his life, so why would you not be happy about that? And the joy and happiness comes across in this song. I've seen him do it live on the tour to support it. He's dropped... Well, it kind of comes and goes, this song. Sometimes it's always Queenie Eye, and then sometimes he sort of interchanges Queenie Eye in this song. But it tends to be Queenie Eye he does, but occasionally he replaces Queenie Eye with this song. But I've only ever seen him do it the once. Every other time I've seen him, he's done Queenie Eye instead. Good tune though, nonetheless. What else have I got written down here? Nope, that's literally all I've got saying. It's a decent song. I don't love it like I used to love it. Like, if I come on here when this album first came out, I'd have come out saying this was the best song on the album. But now, it's sort of just a bit... It's not a bad song, it's just middle of the road. I've just gone off it a bit, I don't know why, but yeah. Anyway, new, it's decent, but not great. So next on the album is a track called Appreciate, and once again here we find ourselves stepping back into the experimental territory and to great effect, because in my opinion this is the best track on the album by quite some distance. It's interesting that Giles Martin produces this song, because you would think, listening to it, it's more likely going to be Paul Epworth that's produced this, or even, dare I say, Mark Ronson produced it. But no, Giles Martin does it. It's modern in the best possible way. You know, Paul has, on a number of occasions throughout his career, tried to be down with the kids. Think of a song like Foot You off Egypt Station, the album that came after this, or that utter crap he did with Kanye West, where it was a bit cringy. It was an old man trying to appeal to kids in their teenagers and people in their 20s. But this, in this instance, is Paul finding a modern sound that works for him, and he makes it work for him. It's brilliant. Very bassy, this song, and you know, I don't know why Paul doesn't do more bassy tracks, because he is a bassist fundamentally at the end of the day. He's one of the greatest bassists of all time, but he tends to bury his bass deep in mixes, but not here. It's up at the forefront, and Paul's vocals are great on here as well. He kind of sounds he sounds like he's up in space, singing down onto down onto the world, if that makes sense. What else have I got written down here? It's got a good, if I can speak, it's got a good groove to it, this song. You can sort of have a bit of a dance to it, you know, lift up your head and remember, etc, etc. Anyway, there is a video for this song as well, which I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, it has a robot in it, and the robot starts dancing, and I think Paul maybe starts dancing with the robot. I can't remember it being that great a video, but anyway, I'd love Paul to do an album of songs like this, because this is what he does best: experimental music, interesting music. Well, he does all sorts of music, I suppose, really well, but I love it when he does stuff like this, like McCartney 2, where it's him pushing boundaries, him trying to do something that isn't him, and that's what he's doing here. And really, with Appreciate, it's kind of the last time he does it, because he doesn't really experiment like this on Egypt State. Well, he doesn't experiment on Egypt Station, and he doesn't really on McCartney 3. Maybe the closest he gets is Deep, Deep Feeling, but other than that, it is Deep, Deep Feeling. Yeah, I think it's Deep, Deep Feeling. But they're not really that experimental, and I'll be honest, I don't think The Boys of Dungeon Lane is going to have anything experimental like this on it. So, yeah, by a long way as well, this is the song I've listened to the most off this album. It's the one I come back to the most. Like to this day, I still listen to this song a lot. So yeah, I appreciate a lot. It's a great song to have to appreciate. Best on the album for me. So Everybody Out There is the title of the next track, and I believe the idea Paul had with this song was for it to be a crowd sing-along. He even named his tour at the time after this song, and it was obviously a huge success because he dropped it pretty early in the tour. In fact, I think he played it in Japan early in the tour, and then that was it. It was gone. By the time I seen him on this tour, this song was long gone. So yeah, it was obviously a big success getting everybody to sing along. Anyway, it is a bit dull, this song, I'll be honest. He's done this kind of thing before with tracks like People Want Peace on the next album, Egypt Station. I'm sure there's a track like this on Off the Ground as well, but I can't for the life of me remember what it is. Is it Come On People I'm thinking of? I can't remember, but yeah, where he tries to do these big crowd sing-along songs, but then he's never brave enough to keep them in his set and give crowds a chance to get to know them. It's like he does it, and if people aren't singing them like Hey Jude to begin with, it goes. Or he doesn't even bother trying in the first place. It's a Giles Martin produced one, this, which is weird because it's kind of the complete opposite of Appreciate that comes before. Appreciate, we have a genuinely interesting song, and then we have this one, which I'll be honest, it's a bit boring. Yeah, it's not a bad song, this, it's just unremarkable. That's all I've really got to say on it, so let's move on to the next song. We're stepping back into the experimental territory next with a track called Hosanna, which is the second of the two Ethan Johns produced tracks on the album, and for me it's the better of the two. It's quite a sparse song, this one. Again, it's psychedelic in the best possible way. Paul does seem to struggle a bit with his vocals on this song. It's probably the only time on the album, I suppose, where he sounds like he's struggling. With Early Days, he gets away with it because he sounds like he's deliberately doing it, even though he is probably struggling there, and it's not deliberate, but it works on there. Whereas on here, it does sound like he's struggling. It's nothing bad, but it is noticeable here that his voice is older than it used to be, and he is struggling to reach some of those high notes he's obviously wanting to go for. I like how this whole song stays in this same sort of sparse arrangement. Often you find with songs like this, it'll start off quite sparse and experimental, and then he'll play it safe by turning it into a full-blown rock song. He doesn't do that here. It stays sparse and quite loose throughout, and I like it for that. I would feel that if it did go into a rock song halfway through, it would kind of ruin the song, to be honest. Yeah, it's another good song. There's not too much to say about it other than I like it. I Can Bet is the title of the next track, and once again we have a Giles Martin produced song. It's a rocker, this one. Nicely rocks along. Paul's bass is fantastic on here. What else have I got written down? Some great harmonies, but it's the only track on the album I would say that feels like filler. You could drop this one and the album wouldn't be any different. It's the only track on here where I feel like you could take it off and it wouldn't affect the album in any way. It's not a bad song, it just doesn't really do anything for me, just filler. So yeah, nothing much to say on that one really. Looking at Her is the title of the next track, and once again this is a Giles Martin produced track. I quite like this one, to be honest with you. It's a wee bit experimental, this one, driven largely by Paul's bass. It's kind of a song of two halves, this one. So you have Paul singing about a girl, and it's when he's singing about the girl where it goes quite sparse. But then at points in the song he sings about, I can't remember exactly what the line is off the top of my head, but it's about basically going crazy, the singer going crazy. And when he sings that, the arrangement goes all over the place. It just like explodes and goes all crazy. Yeah, and it works really well because it kind of like, it complements the lyrics perfectly. What else have I got written about that? Nope, that's all I've got written about that. So yeah, not much to say about it other than I like this one as well. And finally, we come to the closing track, Road, which is the final of the Paul Epworth produced and co-written tracks, and for me, by far the worst of the three that them two did together on here. What have I got written down here? It's quite experimental, it's very bassy. Paul's voice sounds quite spaced out on this one again. He seems to like to do that effect on his voice on here, and it works pretty well. It's a modern one in the best possible way. This song, it's a shame he never did this one live, because I think this one could have worked well live, especially with his live band. I think his band's maybe on this one, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, it's a decent tune. Not much to say on it, other than it's a nice closing track. Except it's not the closing track, because after that there is a hidden track which is called Scared. Obviously Paul was too scared to announce this song was on the album properly. No, he wasn't, because he said this was his favourite song on the album. It's a Giles Martin produced song, and it's literally just Paul sat at the piano just playing away, and it's a beautiful song, it's a great song. I don't know why he felt the need to hide it, because really it's a better song than Road, and Road's not a bad song. So yeah, this is the proper closing track. It is haunting in the best possible way. Yeah, I really like Scared. It's a great way to close the album. Nice little hidden track. So overall, new is certainly that. It is fresh from Paul. It sounds like a man who is new to the game. He doesn't sound like a man who's been, at this point, well, it's 50 years since his first album came out with Please Please Me. So, and he still sounds as fresh. He still sounds as excited as he did back then to be still innovating and creating new, exciting music. It doesn't feel like an old man who's trying to be down with the kids to tragic effect. It doesn't sound cringy. It just sounds like Paul's found a modern style that works for him. It's definitely one of Paul's all-time best albums, this one. I wouldn't say it's in his top 5, but I'd probably put it in his top 10, and it's one of his best 21st century albums for sure. Yeah, it's up there. Is it his best? It's probably second or third, I would say anyway. Chaos is probably a better album than this one, but this one ain't far behind. The only real problem I have with this album is the producers. I get too many cooks in the kitchen. It's the same with Flowers. I don't feel like really Mark Ronson and Ethan Johns bring anything to this that Giles Martin couldn't have done. The fact that Giles is the executive producer does feel like that was who Paul truly wanted to work with, but he wanted to bring some of these others in as well. I'm surprised, to be honest, he didn't go with Mark Ronson producing the whole thing, because he was the producer at that point. So it's interesting that he didn't get him to do more than 2. Well, there was a third song they did, but that one's never been released for some reason. So yeah, some great tracks on here. Appreciate, for me, is by far the best song on here, but Save Us is great, Alligator is great, On My Way to Work is great, Queenie Eye is great, I suppose New's not bad. Scared, the hidden track at the end, is also really good. Yeah, there's just some great stuff on here, and even the stuff I didn't mention is still good. The only real song that I don't really care for is I Can Bet, but other than that, but even then, if it was dropped, it wouldn't matter. But if the fact it's on here, it's nothing offensive. He's done a lot worse than songs like that. I mean, if that's as bad as this album gets, then yeah, then we're doing good. Don't worry. Yeah, it feels like as well this is the last time that Paul ever tried to push it. Well, to date, it feels like the last time he's really tried to push himself, because both Egypt Station and McCartney 3 feel much more like it's Paul playing it safe compared to this album, where he's trying to push himself with tracks like Appreciate and Hosanna and Road and things like that, and Alligator. Boys of Dungeon Lane is not released yet, so we don't know what that's going to be like. Maybe there'll be experimental stuff on there, but based on the press releases and what we've been told about the album, I don't think it's going to have experimental music on it. I think it's going to be quite reflective music, kind of in vein to the track we've had so far, Days We Left Behind. So yeah. Anyway, I'm maybe being a bit biased here, because obviously, like I say, this was the first Paul album I bought when it came out. This was the new, pardon the pun, the new album from Paul when I was first paying attention to him as a solo artist. So for that, and the fact I also seen him live supporting this for the first time, this album will always have a special place in my heart for those reasons. But maybe I'm looking at it through rose-tinted glasses. Maybe other people don't like it, so do let me know down in the comments below what you think of this album. But yeah, new overall, fantastic album for me. It is one of Paul's best albums ever, period. It's up there amongst his very best. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say for now. So once again, thank you very much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do like the video. It's greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around here. I do all sorts of stuff, mainly McCartney related stuff. If you're wanting solo Beatles, I will be covering the Boys of Dungeon Lane when that comes up very soon. Less than what are we on? It's the 30th today, so we're less than 2 months away from it now. Anyway, yeah, that's all I've got to say. So leave a comment down below what you think of this album. Do you like it? Do you not like it? If you don't like it, why don't you like it? Do you agree, Appreciate it's the best song on here, or do you think Early Days is the best? Who knows? We'll find out. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on a future video. But for now, goodbye. Pow.